If you're over 70 years old and planning to fly anytime soon, there's something you need to know before you even pack your bags. Because flying after 70 is not exactly the same as it was last year. And most seniors don't find out until they're already inside the airport. This isn't something airlines announce. It's not posted on big signs. And no one sends you an email about it. But it is real. And it's quietly changing the way older passengers experience air travel. Now let me say this clearly right from the start. Seniors are not banned from flying. You are not too old to travel. And this is not about taking away anyone's freedom. But there is a new airport policy that didn't exist before. And if you're over 70, it can affect you more than you expect. Many older travelers are confused by it. Some are frustrated by it. And a few are even caught completely off guard. And that's exactly why we're talking about it today. Imagine arriving at the airport like you've done your entire life. You've flown dozens of times. You know how security works. You're calm. You're prepared. Then suddenly, something feels different. You're asked to wait. You're asked extra questions. You're asked to step aside. Not because you did anything wrong. Not because you broke a rule. But simply because the system flagged you for a closer look. That moment alone is enough to make anyone uncomfortable. And it leaves many seniors wondering the same thing. Why didn't this happen before? The truth is, airports have quietly changed how they handle certain passengers, especially older ones. They don't call it a rule. They don't call it a restriction. They call it an updated safety procedure. And that wording makes it easy to overlook. But for travelers over 70, this update can mean longer waits, more screening, and more stress than you've ever experienced while flying. What makes this more frustrating is that no one explains it clearly. So today, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to talk about what changed, why it changed, and how it affects seniors specifically. And most importantly, what you can do to avoid unnecessary delays and discomfort. Because once you understand how this works, you can move through the airport with confidence again. But before we get into the details, you need to understand why airports decided to make this change in the first place. And no, it has nothing to do with age discrimination. In fact, the reason may surprise you. To understand why this change happened, you have to look at how airports think today. Airports no longer focus only on bags, liquids, or metal detectors. They now focus on people. Specifically, how people move, how they respond, and how their bodies handle the stress of travel. Over the past few years, airports have quietly shifted to something called behavioral and wellness-based screening. Again, that sounds harmless, even helpful, but for seniors over 70, it changes things in subtle ways. You see, airports are under pressure to prevent in-flight medical emergencies. Those emergencies cost airlines money. They delay flights, and they create serious safety risks at 30,000 feet. So airports and airlines began asking a new question. Who is more likely to need help during a flight? And statistically, older passengers are watched more closely, not because they are doing something wrong, but because the system is designed to reduce risk before the plane ever takes off. This is where many seniors misunderstand what's happening. They think they're being singled out. They think they made a mistake. In reality, the system is simply observing more than it used to. And this observation starts the moment you enter the terminal. How fast you walk, how steady you appear, how you respond to instructions. None of this was emphasized last year, but now it plays a role. For travelers over 70, even small things can trigger additional screening. Needing extra time to stand, asking questions more than once, appearing tired or short of breath. Again, none of this means you can't fly, but it does mean the airport may slow things down for you. And here's the part no one talks about. This process is mostly invisible. There is no announcement, no explanation. So when you're asked to wait, or step aside, or answer extra questions, it feels sudden and personal. And that's why so many seniors feel confused by it. They say things like, "I've flown my whole life. I've never had this happen. Why now?" The answer is simple. The system changed, and it changed quietly. Airports now operate under the idea that preventing a problem is better than responding to one midair. And seniors, whether fair or not, are part of that calculation. This doesn't mean you're unsafe. It doesn't mean you're unfit to travel. It just means airports are more cautious than they used to be. But there's something else that makes this policy feel even more noticeable after 70. And it has nothing to do with security. It has to do with time. In the next part, we'll talk about how timing, patience, and pacing affect seniors at airports more than ever before, and why rushing, something many seniors try to avoid, can actually work against you now. One of the biggest reasons seniors feel this change more than anyone else comes down to something very simple: time. Airports today are built around speed. Fast lines, fast decisions, fast movement. And if you're over 70, that pace doesn't always match how your body prefers to move. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, moving carefully and deliberately is often smarter. But modern airports don't always see it that way. The system now measures flow, how quickly passengers move through checkpoints, how long they stand still, how often they pause. And when someone takes longer than expected, the system flags it for attention. Again, this doesn't mean trouble. It means observation. For seniors, this is where delays often begin. Taking a moment to catch your breath, adjusting your balance, double-checking instructions. All normal, all reasonable. But under today's airport policies, those moments can lead to extra screening. And here's the part that surprises many older travelers. Trying to rush actually makes it worse. When seniors feel pressured, they may appear anxious or flustered. That alone can draw more attention. Airports are trained to notice stress. And unfortunately, stress looks the same whether it's fear, confusion, or simply fatigue. So what happens? A senior tries to hurry, becomes visibly uncomfortable, and suddenly they're asked to wait or step aside. Not as punishment, not as suspicion, but as precaution. This is why some seniors say, "I did everything right, and it still took forever." They're not wrong. The system isn't reacting to mistakes. It's reacting to patterns. And age plays a role in those patterns now more than it used to. Another factor that didn't exist last year is staffing. Many airports are still operating with fewer workers than before. That means less time per passenger. And when time is limited, airports slow down anyone who might need extra help. Again, that often includes seniors. This is also why some older travelers notice more gate changes, longer boarding times, and additional questions at the counter. It's all connected. But here's the important thing to remember. These delays are not permanent, and they are not unavoidable. There are ways to move through the airport smoothly, even with these new procedures in place. In the next part, we'll talk about one of the biggest triggers for extra screening in seniors, something many people don't even realize they're doing. And once you know it, you can avoid it completely. There is one thing many seniors do at airports that seems completely harmless, but under today's system, it can quietly trigger extra attention. And most people don't even realize it's happening. It's hesitation, pausing before answering a question, stopping to think, asking for clarification. These are all normal behaviors, responsible behaviors even. But modern airport screening systems are trained to notice hesitation, not because hesitation is bad, but because it suggests uncertainty. And uncertainty is something the system now flags more often than it used to. For seniors, this can happen without any warning. A simple question like, "Did you pack your bags yourself?" A senior pauses, thinking carefully. That pause alone can lead to a follow-up question, then another, and suddenly, what should have taken seconds turns into minutes. Another common trigger is over-explaining. Many seniors are polite. They want to be helpful. They want to be clear. So instead of giving a short answer, they explain the full story. Again, nothing wrong with that. But airports today prefer quick, direct responses. Long explanations slow the process, and slow processes draw attention. This is especially true at security checkpoints. Another quiet trigger is physical adjustment. Reaching for a cane, adjusting glasses, steadying yourself. To you, it's just being comfortable. To the system, it's a moment of pause. And that pause is sometimes enough to bring an officer over for a closer look. This is why some seniors feel like they're being watched more closely than before. They're not imagining it. The process has simply become more sensitive. And here's the most important part. None of this means you're doing something wrong. It means the airport is trying to move everyone through as efficiently as possible, and seniors often move at a more thoughtful pace. That difference in pace is what creates friction. But once you understand this, you can work with the system instead of against it. In the next part, we'll talk about what seniors can do before arriving at the airport to make the entire experience calmer and smoother. And this step alone can make a noticeable difference. One of the biggest mistakes seniors make is thinking the airport experience starts at the airport. It doesn't. It starts at home. What you do before you leave your house can determine whether your trip is calm and smooth or stressful and exhausting. The first thing is documentation. Even if you've flown many times before, double-check everything. Your ID, your boarding pass, any medical paperwork you carry. Having these ready and easy to access reduces hesitation at the checkpoint. And hesitation, as we discussed earlier, draws attention. Next is clothing. Comfort matters, but simplicity matters even more. Loose layers are fine, but avoid anything that takes extra time to remove or adjust. Belts, bulky jackets, excessive accessories. The longer it takes to get ready at security, the more likely you are to be slowed down. Another overlooked step is hydration and rest. Flying is physically demanding, especially after 70. Arriving tired or dehydrated can affect how you move, how you respond, and how you appear to others. Airports don't see exhaustion as a personal issue. They see it as a potential risk. Getting a good night's sleep before your flight is not just about comfort anymore. It's about how smoothly you move through the system. Medications are another important factor. Always keep them organized and easy to explain. If you need them, say so calmly and briefly. Long explanations often lead to more questions. Short, clear answers keep things moving. Finally, timing. Give yourself more time than you think you need. Rushing creates stress. Stress creates hesitation. And hesitation creates delays. Arriving early allows you to move at your own pace, which actually reduces the chances of extra screening. Many seniors think arriving early will lead to more waiting. In reality, it gives you control, and control makes everything easier. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens at the gate itself, an area where many seniors are surprised by last-minute changes, and why boarding can feel very different after 70 than it used to. For many seniors, the gate is where things start to feel unfamiliar. You've made it through security. You found your seat. You think the hardest part is over. But in today's airports, the gate is where new changes quietly appear. Over the past year, airlines have adjusted boarding procedures. And once again, these changes affect older travelers more than most people realize. Boarding is now carefully timed. Airlines track how long it takes passengers to get from the gate to their seat. They want planes to leave on schedule. Every delay costs money. So when boarding begins, everything moves fast. For seniors over 70, that speed can be challenging. Standing up slowly, gathering belongings, walking carefully down the jet bridge. All of this takes time. And when time is limited, airlines sometimes step in. This is why some seniors are asked to board earlier than expected, or, in some cases, asked to wait until assistance is available. To the passenger, this can feel confusing. It can feel like you're being singled out. But again, it's about flow. Airlines want to avoid congestion in the aisle. They want to prevent situations where someone needs help after boarding has already begun. So they intervene earlier now. Another change many seniors notice is seat reassignment. You may arrive at the gate expecting the seat you chose. Then suddenly, there's a change. Sometimes it's for balance. Sometimes it's for accessibility. Sometimes it's simply because the airline wants to group passengers differently. These changes weren't common last year. But now, they happen quietly and quickly, and seniors often feel the impact first. Announcements are another issue. Gate announcements are faster, less repetitive, and sometimes harder to hear. If you miss one, you may feel rushed or unsure of what to do next. That uncertainty can create stress, and stress, as we've discussed, tends to draw more attention from staff. But there is good news. Most of these situations can be handled calmly and smoothly once you know what to expect. In the next part, we'll talk about in-flight concerns, why airlines are more cautious with seniors once the plane is in the air, and what that means for your comfort and safety. Once the plane takes off, many seniors believe the scrutiny is over. But in reality, airlines continue paying close attention long after the doors close. In-flight medical situations have increased in recent years, and airlines are doing everything they can to prevent them. For passengers over 70, this means something subtle but important. Flight crews are trained to observe changes in behavior, comfort, and movement. If you get up often, if you appear unsteady, if you seem uncomfortable or short of breath. None of these are problems on their own, but combined, they can prompt closer attention from the crew. This is why some seniors feel like they're being checked on more often than before. A flight attendant may ask how you're feeling. They may offer water. They may suggest remaining seated. This isn't suspicion. It's prevention. Airlines want to avoid medical emergencies mid-flight whenever possible. Diverting a plane is extremely costly. It disrupts hundreds of passengers. and it creates serious safety concerns. So airlines now take a more cautious approach, especially with older travelers. Another thing seniors notice is seatbelt and mobility reminders. Flight attendants may remind you to stay seated longer. They may offer assistance before turbulence even begins. These reminders were less common last year, but today they are standard practice. Again, not because seniors are incapable, but because airlines are trying to reduce risk. There's also a growing focus on hydration and circulation. You may hear announcements encouraging movement, water intake, and rest. For seniors, these messages are not just suggestions. They are part of a broader effort to keep passengers healthy throughout the flight. Some older travelers interpret this as being treated differently, but in truth, it's about awareness. Airlines have learned that small interventions early can prevent major problems later. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens after landing, an area where many seniors experience unexpected delays and confusion, and why the trip isn't truly over until you've exited the airport completely.